What up, YouTube? It is your boy JB, and we are here today with the review for Power Book 2, Ghost, Season 2, Episode 2, and the episode is titled Selfless Ask You guys. Now, before we get into this review, if you guys are watching this video or any other on the channel and you guys are not yet subscribed to this channel, do me a huge favor and stop taking me out on this date. Hit that subscribe button. Having me pay for it at the end of it, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, turn your notifications on, share the video, and you guys, with that out the way, without further ado, let's get into Power Book 2, Ghost. Guys, so we see the episode and we start up with Tariq. So we see Tariq. Now, Tariq is having another one of his dreams, right? So in this dream, it's just him. And he's near an incinerator where he's, getting rid of clothes. And he's about to get rid of this phone. But he's still thinking about Tasha at this point. So Kanan is there, right? Kanan's like telling them, nigga, throw all that shit in there, right? So then there's a knock at Tariq's door, and he goes to the door, and it's the NYPD. They're picking Tariq up, right, to take him down to the station. So we see Tariq. He gets down to the police station, and there is Raina there, right? Raina and Sax are there. So we find out that Big Mama, she got a DWI, and she hit a parked car. So Tariq goes and talks to Big Mama. And Big Mama is just going through a lot because, Big Mama has lost her daughter. She don't know where Tasha is. She can't talk to Tasha. Ghost is dead. Raina is dead. So Big Mama is just dealing with a lot. And then y'all want her to raise Yaz. Well, shit, Big Mama been raising Yaz since she was born. Because Tasha and Ghost ain't did a lick of shit with that little girl, right? And Big Mama was like, she was supposed to be gone tonight. And I was just supposed to have a night to myself. Like I can't have just one drink or two. So we find out that Yaz will be going into the foster care system, right? Because she can't stay with Big Mama. She can't stay at the dorm rooms with Tariq, so foster home it is, right? So then we see Tariq. So Tariq is talking to Davis, and he's asking Davis, like, why the fuck is Sax here, right? Why is he working for him? And he says, he has a skill set that he believes can help him and his clients, right? So then Sax comes in saying that he got Big Mama a DAT. And Tariq was like, what the fuck is that? He says he got her a desk appointed ticket, or a desk, it's a desk ticket, right? So what it is she won't have to sit in jail until her trial, right? She can go home and wait for her trial to come up, right? So then Tariq tells Davis he doesn't trust Sax because he's not doing this out of the out of the goodness of his heart, right? And Davis says, hell, neither am I, little homie. So he says, he needs help getting gas, right? And Dave's like, ain't shit I can do with that, right? But he says, what you're going to need is a lot of money and someone with some influence, right? So then we see Tariq, he's back in his room, and Braden is there, right? They're talking. Braden is like, where you been at, Tariq? He's like, I was dealing with some family stuff, right? So Braden actually was on the phone with Trace, telling Trace that he doesn't want to pledge CalPA, right? But he says, you know what? I'll be there just so you can look good for dad, right? So Tariq asked him if he moved the product. He says, yeah, it's in his trunk at his parents' place, right? And then Tariq tells him, well, I'm going to need you to handle the product alone while he handles this shit with, with Yaz and Big Mama. Talk about Kane real quick, you guys. So we see Kane. So Kane is out with Little Guap, right? And then Kane got a text from Mecca to meet up with him, right? So then we see Kane. So he goes to meet Mecca, who has more questions for him, right? He's asking him, like, who you trying to impress, my nigga? And Mecca asked him about his family. He was like, because Kane was like, I've been in the game since before I was even born, right? And my brothers and sisters, he's like, where are they? He's like, they're around. So then he asked about his mom. He said, Kane starts talking about Monet, saying that Monet thinks she running things, and that his mom has been trying to get Lorenzo out of jail, but it's not gonna happen, right? So Mecca tells him he'll give him a trial run. Then they get a notification that Lil Guap is there. He's like, did you tell this motherfucker where you was going? He says, nah, I ain't tell him nothing. So he lets Lil Guap up, and Lil Guap comes up on the phone, all on social media, just showing, and like he's like, dude, why would you? Which I don't understand that shit. I don't understand people who always post where they are on social media. So out of nowhere, he grabbed this man's hands and just started bending his fingers. I was like, oh, and he started breaking I'm like, oh, bruh. I know they gotta hurt. see Tate. So in this episode, so Tate was talking to Simon, and Tate is. You guys know that Tate wants to take Rick's place as what is Rick? Is he a congressman? I think he's a congressman. So he wants to take his spot, right? So Tate is asking Simon for help with Rick, but Simon's like, I don't give a damn about that shit. Like, what I want you to do is come down to Stansfield and be an adjunct professor in the canonical studies course, right? And then he shows him a picture, he shows him the picture of Kira Dad. So then we see Tate. So he's at Stansfield, and that's where he met Carrie with, it was a very cold reception, might I add, right? Very, very cold reception. So then we see, the detective, his name is Kevin, and he was talking to Milgram's sponsor, right? So he's asking her, what is the nature of their relationship. She didn't want to tell him at first, but then, she eventually told him that, she's her sponsor, right? And he wants to know what they've talked about. And then he asked her about, her relationship with Jabbar, which I'm like, wow, that is very, very intrusive. So, since I'm talking about Carrie and, Tate, let's go back up and talk about them when they were in class. So Tariq went to the class, right? And he saw Tate there. He looked at him like, what the fuck? And then while Carrie and Tate are in front of the class, her phone is ringing, and it's Hannah, but she doesn't answer it, right? So then the question for this week is, the question now is, are there any selfless acts, right? So everyone is telling what they think about selfless acts, right? And then, at the end of it, Tate steps in with a different approach to a selfless act. Like, it could be a beneficial thing for both parties, right? Just because I did this for you doesn't mean that you can't then benefit from it, right? So let's talk about Zeke. So we see Zeke. So Zeke is having this little press conference, right? And he's giving the announcement that he'll be entering the draft this year, right? And then Monet tells him that at this point, you're going to be a target, right? And for sure by women. And she tells him that she has his best interest at her. I'm like, do you really, Monet? Do you really? Because, this is all about you, right? So then she asked him if, all of his off-court issues are behind him. He didn't answer her. So then we later see Monet and Diana. So they're at the bar. So what they're doing is they're trying to get the bar, open so that way they can have a place that they can, basically wash the money, right? So then Diana is telling Monet that, hey, I can learn these different programs, but I think it would be better if I went to school to learn accounting, right? And Monet tells her, little girl, you are out of your lane at this point, right? Because she's telling her, she's like, you can't, how you gonna go to school and be in the game at the same time, right? So then we see Zeke, right? And he is with Drew, and they're trying to, they're on the court, right? So Zeke is trying to help Drew with his arm, right? So then they talk about the announcement, right? And he says, he's excited about going to the league, but there'll be some people that he'll miss over at Stansfield, right? And then Drew says, yeah, because there'll be some people that I miss too over at Stansfield. He's like, wait a minute, but Monet not gonna let y'all leave the city. He's like, we thought this was Monet's, retirement plan, but it's really not. It's her way out of the game. So he says, wherever city you go to, Monet is gonna help us all up and come with you, so that way you are away from, Tariq and Courts Connect. He's like, all that was Reek. He was like, yeah. And where are we at? So then we see Drew. He's sitting outside, right, and he's looking on social media, and then Kane pulls up on him, right, saying that, I thought about what you said to me at the hospital, and so he says, let's go for a ride. So we see them. He says that, he wants to make things right as well. So we see them, and they go out to the gun range, right? So, Drew is telling Kane about Monet, and he says that they need a new connect, right? He says, well, you know what? I might just be able to help you with that, right? So then we see Zeke. So Zeke went over to Milgram's, and she tells him, congrats. And she says, he has to do this for the family, right? But at this point, they have to stop seeing each other. So after Zeke leaves, that's when, Kevin was sitting outside, and he was noticing. So then he goes up to Kira's apartment, and he asks her, why was Zeke here? And she asked him, why was he talking to her sponsor? So then he asked her, like, why didn't she tell him about Jabari? So then, he asked her, like, where were you the night that Jabari was murdered? She says, I was here. He says, do you have an alibi? She says, yes, it was Zeke. He says, wait a minute, so you were sleeping with Zeke? She said, yes. And he says, okay, if he can corroborate that, I'm gonna get you both locked up and I'm gonna get you disbarred. I was like, ooh, girl, you fucked like Chuck. I'm gonna pause here, you guys. All right, you guys. So we see Drew later in the episode, right? So Drew was talking to Monet, and Drew was telling Monet about the new connect that Kane has, right? Monet is like, I ain't fuck with nobody that's fucking with Kane, right? And she basically says that she can't forgive Kane. I'm like, damn, cold-hearted to the end. So then we see Monet and Lorenzo. So it's their anniversary, right? Now, the one thing in this episode that kept playing was that there was this car that it drove by the bar and it drove by the house playing the same song, right? So Monet is spending her 22nd anniversary with Lorenzo, and she's in her feelings about things, right? She tells him that, Kane is out for going against the family, but, she tells him about Kane and his new connect, right? And he says, well, you need to work shit out with Kane, right? So we see Monet, and she goes and talks to Kane about the offer, right? And she tells him that, she needs to trust him, and that Tariq is off limits, and they are in two different lanes at this point, right? So that's where it ended with Monet. So let's see where we want to go next. Actually, let's talk about Sax real quick, right? So we see Sax, and he's getting it in with Jenny, right? And then she tells him about the Reynolds case, right? And that the prime suspect at this point is Carrie, but she did notice that an advisee for Reynolds is Tariq, and that raises a little bit of a red flag in Sax's head. So then we see Davis. He's in Sax's office. Sax is in Davis. Well, actually, Davis is in his office, and he's looking at his brother's file. And Sax comes in saying that Tariq, he might be involved in another murder, right? And Davis says, well, you know what? We need as much info as we can get on this case, right? So he basically is telling him to keep fucking her, right? So then we see Davis, and he went over to Carrie's place, right, to offer her help, right? She turns him away, and and she calls Zeke, who's banging some girl, out, right? So then Kevin shows up and takes Zeke down to the NYPD for questioning. So then let's move back up, you guys, and let's talk about Tariq a little bit more, right? Now, you guys remember I told you that Davis told Tariq that he needed money and someone with influence, right, in order to help him get right with the Raina situation, right? So after class, Tariq went up to Tate to talk to Tate about helping him with Raina. And at first, Tate was not interested in it until he asked Tariq, does he know any Westons? So Tariq was like, yeah, I know some Westons. So he was like, oh, okay. So you know some Westons. Okay, cool. So then that is when Kevin came in, right? So Kevin came in looking for Tariq. And he asked Tariq, he took Tariq to the office to question Tariq about, Jabari's death. He said, did anybody say that I knew anything about it? He says, no. He says, now, did you hear any rumblings about, him having any relationships with people? He's like, well, yeah. He said, he was talking about Professor Milgram. So let's see where we at. So yeah, so he talks about the rumors between Professor Milgram, and then he mentions that, remember, they had that dinner party at Lauren's house, and things got a little bit heated with them too, right? So then we see Tariq. So he goes to talk to Milgram, but then Tate steps in to talk to her, and he's in his feelings about the cops being in his office. So at this point, Tariq was going to plant that phone that he's been using in her office, right? So he asked her if he knows why, Kevin was trying to talk to Tariq. So remember, I was telling you guys that, Kevin went to talk to Hannah, right? Well, Hannah texts Milgram, her phone kept going off in class, right? So she told her it might be in her best interest to get a new sponsor, right? So that's something I forgot to talk about. So we're gonna keep going, you guys. Effie real quick. So we found out, I didn't know that Effie was gay, right? Or at least bisexual. Because we see her, she's about to get it in with some girl, and then Brayden shows up to her room, right? So Brayden left, And then, he left the product with Effie, so Effie's supposed to, sell the product, right? So as he's left, he gets a call from Effie, and Effie is telling Brayden that the shit was stepped on. So then he calls Tariq, and Tariq declines his call because Tariq was with Kane at the time, right? So then we later see Effie, and Effie is getting into some argument with this girl, and Effie pulled out a gun, I believe. The guy that was with that girl knocked the gun out of her hand. So Effie just used her fist and just boom, boom, boom. The dude, he pushed Brayden down. He was punching Brayden, but then Brayden got on top of him and started beating him up, right? So, we got that. So then we see Tariq. So Tariq finally looked at his messages and it said 911 from Brayden when he was with, who was he with at the time when he got that message that said 911? He was with Kane. And that's when Kane was still tripping about Ramirez. So he tells him he talked to the cops, right? And that they have a suspect. And, it is Jabari's ex and Carrie, right? So that he told Kane what he told Kane he had a plan. He didn't tell Kane what the plan was because that's when he saw the messages from Brayden saying 911, right? So then he went over to Monet's house to talk to Diana, to ask Diana to give him a ride up to New Haven. And she's like, Tariq, that is about 2 or 3 hours away from here. And Monet will kill me if she knows that I'm gone, right? But we do see them, they go up to New Haven, right? And that is when they are talking to Brayden and to Effie. And Brayden's face was just like so fucked up, right? So Diana was there with Kane, well, not with Kane, but with Tariq. And Effie's like, "Is this your girlfriend?" She's like, "Nah, it ain't nothing like that, right?" So Effie asks him, "Where's the real shit at?" Right? And Diana says, "Well, we don't sell no tainted shit." And it seems like the only issue came in with Effie. Effie's like, "I already had to beat one bitch up tonight. I don't want to have to do another." She's like, "Who you calling a bitch?" So they get into it, right? So they now figure they now gotta say like, "Damn, what are we gonna tell Monet?" So we see Diana. She gets back home, and Drew's like, "Where have you been? Because Mama been looking for you, right?" So she tells them about the product. So Monet opens the product, and she licks it. She was like, "That motherfucker Rico." So what it is they have powdered sugar, and she was like, "That motherfucker Rico." And they were like, "Is she serious? Like she ain't mad?" So then we later see Diana. So Diana went down to, back to the school where Effie is. And she's talking to Effie and she was like, I know you're selling weight and you in school. Like, how are you doing it? Like, can you help me out? So Effie, at that point, she told, she was talking to her about the product, right? And she's like, who has the most to gain from fucking up y'all's product? And child, when I tell you, I really was surprised to find out who had actually fucked with the product. It was Kane. So Kane has the product and he's showing it to Mecca. I'm like, so Kane swiped his own, and that's what Mecca said to him. So you swiped your own mama's product? He was like, yeah. He was like, I'm trying to help them out. I'm trying to get them some work, right? I'm like, oh, when Monet find this shit out, Monet is gonna be pissed like a mother. Monet is gonna be pissed off when she finds out about this one. Like Monet ain't gonna be too happy. She is not. Not at all. Alright, you guys. So I think we're starting to wrap up the episode, right? So we see Tariq at the end of the episode. We see Tariq as, they're having this, I don't know what they were having, but, there was this big fire. So we see Tariq, he has the burner phone, right? He tears up the SIM card and throws it in there, and then he takes the phone and chunks it in as well, right? Then we see Drew, he's texting Everett. We see Kane, he comes home, and Diana asks Drew, like, did you call Kane, or did you call Kane, or did he reach out to you? And it's the latter, right? So we see Diana, she lied to Tariq, right? She said that Monet was mad as fuck about, the product. And she said that they have a new connect, but he needs a place to stash her, right? And then we see Monet at the end of the episode. So Mecca's real name is Dante, and we find out that Mecca and Monet actually have a past with one another. They dated in the past. I was like, oh, now this is going to be an interesting thing, right? Baby Monet has had dick for days. Monet has had dick. She's got, I mean, she had Ramirez, she got Lorenzo, and now she got Mecca. Baby Monet ain't lacking for some DICK, is she? But that's the episode, you guys. If it's all over the place, I do apologize. My notes were a little all over. They weren't all over. I thought they were cohesive when I was taking them, but now that when I started looking at them, I'm like, ugh. But yeah, I'm gonna edit this down, and hopefully it looks a little bit more cohesive. But let me know what you guys thought about the episode. Please leave your comments in the comment section below and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell button, so that way you guys are notified of when I drop anything else. Share the video, and until the next one, guys, stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Remember to wash your hands, wear a mask, socially distance, be blessed, and I'm gonna catch you guys in the next one. Bye, guys. What time is it?